Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So my classic album inspection today is Queensryche's fifth album, Promised Land. This was released October the 18th, 1994. Quite a big buzz for me about this album at the time. It had been 4 years since Empire, double the usual length of tape between albums. I actually went to a pre-release listening party in my local pub, Trillions, the Rock Bar, and I got a free poster. It was all very exciting. 2 weeks before Dream Theater's Awake album had come out as well. So this was kind of like manna from heaven, really, if you weren't into what was happening in music at the time. When Queensryche released this album and made #3, it went platinum. It was well received, but they didn't have the success they'd had on the previous 2 albums. And you know, it's due to the length of time, but also the sort of the difference in the rock music of the time. But I still think this sits in quite well with those times. It's got a more organic sound. It's not as polished, but it still has enough polish, unlike Here and Now Frontier, where they went too far with that. Band recorded this with James Jimbar Barton on an island off the coast of Seattle or on a lake or something, to try and kind of bring them back together. Chris DeGarmo did that, but in the end, a lot of them just kind of went away off the island, I think, and went back every night, whereas he stayed maybe with Jeff Tate. So I think it was a kind of not the beginning of the straw that would break the camel's back with DeGarmo. I think he'd found a lot of pressure around the time of Empire. There's a famous interview with him, if you find it, with Malcolm Doane. It was only released until recently, where he's sort of questioning his place in the band. And Here and Now Frontier, he probably just kind of went with the flow and then realised that he'd had the best of the band. People always mourn him not coming back, but I've always respected that. He knew when to quit, and he didn't quite quit while he was ahead, if we're honest. So the album opens up with 9:28 AM. This is a song, piece of music for using sound effects of collated soundscapes that, and natural sounds that Scott Rockenfield's put together. I've never really been that fussed with this. I'd just rather it went straight in and got down to business with 10 tracks. And it comes in with I Am I next, which is superb. Chris DeGarmo, Jeff Tate composition, really cool octave melody on this, utilising the Phrygian, the Lydian mode, very much a bit like Radiohead's Airbag, if you know the intro to that off the OK Computer album. So this kind of predates that. It's got a kind of spiralling drum rhythm that, you know, a band like Radiohead might quite like. So Queensryche a bit ahead of the curve here. Great solo, really good lyrics, really good vocals. Goes into a nice kind of jutted effect at the end, and that goes straight into Damaged. Another DeGarmo Tate composition, 3 minutes 58, 1 second longer. Another superb track that I play live a lot. It's got really good good riff, good bass sound, nice kind of distortion on the bass bit of burr. They often play this live still, and they do it with I Am I. And then things calm down for DeGarmo's Out of Mind. This is the first acoustic track. Really good, again, lovely use of the Lydian mode on this. Great low register Jeff Tate vocal, and there's some really cool, really low end backing vocals by Jeff Tate. You know, he's got that lovely speaking voice, and he's able to do those kind of real low bits. And great fretless bass, nice fretless parts by Eddie Jackson on this. I think Eddie Jackson plays very well on this album. He's got a really cool bass sound. The next track, things tail down a bit for me, Bridge. I've always liked it, I've never loved it. It's 3 minutes 29, it's a Chris DeGarmo acoustic number. It's the lightest track on the album. In a way, I prefer it was a bit longer. I prefer if it just kind of stretched out a bit more. There's one thing about this album, the tracks are shorter. Whether they've got less ideas, but it's not, there's only one track which stretches out really, and that's the next one, which is Promised Land. This is a band composition. Lots of big soundscapes effects on this. It's very experimental, kind of Roger Waters-esque lyrics, Floyd-esque sounds. The end, Jeff Tate's kind of playing himself, getting drunk in a bar, sort of feeling sorry for himself, questioning his success. The end of the track kind of builds up with Jeff Tate playing sax, it grooving away, and very lots of, you know, recorded voices, and then the main protagonist, I guess, the Tate character, walks out of the bar into the night air, and you hear like the insects and the quietness. And the tracks never totally work for me, but I would give it a 6 out of 10. It's a really interesting piece of music, and that always felt like if this was on vinyl, that was the end of side one. It's about 25 minutes, so the album's 47 minutes. So the sort of second half of the album opens up with Disconnected. This, in a way, continues the kind of theme of the Promised Land lyrics. You know, it's about being disconnected from modern life, consumerism. This is written by Rockenfield and Tate. So I imagine Scott Rockenfield's maybe put together some beat on his drums, drum machine technology. It's really good. It's rather than having a typical vocal melody, it's more vocal effects, spoken bits, cool guitars. You know, it might not totally sit with everyone. I suppose if you're looking for comparison, it's kind of like NM156, different, not like power metal, sci-fi, but it's got that kind of cut quality. Really good. Great bass sound on this. Dum, 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 you know. Then the next track is Lady Jane. This throws another bit of a curveball. It's a kind of a gothic piano ballad. Good vocal harmonies. It's written by DeGarmo. There's a kind of pattern here with DeGarmo stuff. You can see he's going lighter. And that quite interesting. But I do like the track. I don't love it. I'd probably give it a 6, 7, but it is a good track. Then you've got My Global Mind. It's got elements of classic Reich, pretty cool lyrics, great sort of main, you know, sort of really powerful drum pattern from Scott Rockenfield, and it drops down into like a really nice chord progression, clean chord progression for the verses. That's actually DeGarmo Rockenfield take Wilton, Michael Wilton only his second writing credit on this. It's good, it's a catchy track. It's always been kind of, I imagine it's quite a deep cut fan favourite. And then you've got One More Time. I never used to be as fussed with this track, but it is very good. Again, DeGarmo Tate. It's got a great mix of acoustics and electrics. Really good chorus. Nice cheesy key change at the end, going up the tone that really lifts. And yeah, I like it. Someone else finishes the album. So interestingly enough, there was a full band version of this, and I think whether they'd done piano along with it or whether Jeff Tate had done a piano version, but they went with the piano version. It's all the better for it. The band version just kind of feels all right. It's 7 minutes long. This is just Jeff Tate and a piano. He gives an outstanding vocal performance. And again, the lyrics are kind of questioning identity, I guess. His journey up to that point. Again, connecting with the themes of the album, so I suppose One More Time as well is like, what would he do different? So, what's my overall opinion of this album? Well, for a long time I preferred it to Empire, actually. As much as I really like Empire, the sort of poppiness of that commerciality, I didn't like as much. But the main thing with Empire is they've done like sort of Rage for Order, Warning and Mindcrime, which are kind of, you know, connected in a way. Certainly they lead up to Mindcrime. So it was fair enough on Empire that they would try and go, well, let's just kind of do more one-off songs. I think this album finds itself sort of caught in a strange place. Every Queensryche album up to this point feels cohesive. It feels it's got like a mission statement where they've discussed what they're going to do and they do it. It's certainly the case, The Warning, Rage for Order's very conceptual, obviously. Mindcrime is. Empire, okay, we're going to do separate songs and be a bit more commercial. This one, it's got kind of conceptual elements of the lyrics. I Am I, Damaged, Promised Land, Disconnected, certainly Interlock, maybe One More Time, Someone Else even. And then you get sort of Out of Mind as well, tying in with that. But then kind of Bridge and Lady Jane kind of, and My Global Mind don't fit in with that. The fact the songs are shorter, it doesn't have that ability to kind of stretch out. Apart from the Promised Land track, you think about Empire, you know, Silent Lucidity, Anybody Listening, the tracks that stretch out, and obviously there's songs like that before. Incidentally, Queensryche have always written quite short songs. You know, the Rage for Order album, you've got tracks that are, you know, under 4 minutes. But yeah, that's one thing to me. It doesn't feel quite as cohesive. It might have been interesting to have the track Real World on it, which is on the last Action Hero soundtrack. But when I listen to it, it doesn't totally fit because Michael Kamen's strings are too sort of big. They're too Empire, for want of a better expression. Not there's anything wrong with that, but that doesn't really fit in with the sound of this album. But you know, I've always really liked it. I still really like it. It's not a classic, and I would argue the first 4 Queensryche albums are, but it's definitely, if Queensryche could have done a better 7th album and just pushed on from this and got through the noughties, got through the 90s, sorry, the rest of the 90s, they would have had a better noughties. But with DeGarmo going, and what happened with Jeff Tate and that, they just didn't, what was left of the band just didn't produce the quality albums. And I think, although they're in a decent position now with Todd La Torre, I think they could have been in a better position, or positioned better if that hadn't happened. But it was just very difficult for those bands. I was talking about it with someone the other day, and most of the bands who played some form of traditional heavy metal or whatever, once you got to the kind of 92, 93 or 94, you just had to try and get at the end of that decade. And then the term classic rock's invented, classic metal, whatever, and then you can be a sort of legacy act. So what would remark this album out of 10? Like, I'm not pushing 920M, but IMI, Damaged, Out of Mind, or 10 out of 10 is a great 30. British Promised Land, I give 6H, that's 42. Disconnected, 10 again, 52. Lady Jane is 6, it's 58. My Global Mind, I'd probably give it like an 8, 9. There's a couple of things don't work on it, but it's like a 67. One More Time, I'd probably give about an 8, 75. Someone else, 8, 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10. You know, if you take the 928 off, because it's not really a track. I mean, this album's easy an 8 out of 10, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. I'd probably say it's an 8. So if you've not bothered checking it out, if you like Queensryche, Stop at Empire, they don't. This is a record really worth checking out, but don't expect that kind of cohesion of vision, cohesion of sound. No, actually, it does have a cohesion of sound, but cohesion of vision, I think. It's more a collection, not a collection of songs, because there's songs that interlocked, but just not every song interlocks, whereas I think in previous times it kind of do. Okay, so I'll see you again. Remember, share and subscribe, and thanks for listening. Cheers.